welcome to 8th House Portal. How is everybody feeling? Can anyone else feel this energetic shift? It feels like a huge shift has happened. We're already in it collectively, right? I mean, we see it, right, in the news. But of course, we're also all going through our own evolution, I guess. The last episode, I spoke about prenuptial agreements. So we were in the realm of shared resources. And I wanted to continue within that realm of shared resources, but move away from romantic attachments and more into the professional realm of things. So I was curious about this creator economy, and one question in my mind led to another, and I got down to, when a brand becomes successful, who actually owns it? So I guess I went from that question to, what is success? And we all have a different definition, maybe, of success. But of course, I went to the dictionary. What is success? It is, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, the achieving of desired results, or someone or something that achieves positive results. I think for the creator community, that could involve audience size. So like views, how many views you get, followers, subscribers. There's something called attention capital, meaning the ability to attract and hold attention of the audience. So I think it's becoming more difficult to hold people's attention. Economist Herbert A. Simon wrote, "A wealth of information creates a poverty of attention." Isn't that so true? Why is that, though? People have to divide their attention when there is an abundance of information. There's just so much to choose from. There are millions of videos uploaded daily in social media posts, so there's this increased supply, but human attention didn't increase. So there's an intense competition for attention. Then there's the different platforms competing to capture and retain the user's attention with things like Instagram feeds or YouTube video recommendations. So then human attention then becomes a limited resource, something that creators have to keep in mind. There's the economic value of attention, because you get revenue from some platforms in relation to watch time and clicks and engagement, right? That's monetization. Most content, though, doesn't receive attention or engagement. There's this, because of that intense competition for attention, right? There's only a small percentage of creators that receive the most views, and there's a pressure on those creators to maintain engagement and visibility. That all determines, among other things, which creators and their work is seen, and who gains influence, therefore who earns the income. Which many of us would think, well, that's really unfair. Well, it's part of the game, I guess. Another part, I guess, of defining success in the creator community is independence. When you finally get control over your work and your livelihood. So so you have your creative freedom, your independence from the traditional employment system, and ownerships of intellectual property. So basically, you have an independent, stable career, right? That could be seen as success. But here's something to keep in mind. Some creators may appear successful because they have all that visibility, but they may still be struggling financially, actually. There's apparently quite a gap between fame and income for creators. Some of you may know about the creator economy study, where about 9,500 creators were surveyed. And they found that only about 12% of full-time creators earn more than $50,000 a year. And then about 46 to 48% earn less than $1,000 annually from their content. If anyone else wants to like quadruple check that, please do and correct me if I'm wrong. I had to like go back and read that again. Almost half of creators earn less than 1,000 annually. Is that what I read? So most creators, it looks like, make very little income even if they produce content. There's another article in Business Insider called Creator Income Inequality is Rising as Top Influencers Rake in Big Paydays from Brands. I believe that was from January 2026. So it talks about wealth being very unequal. So there's an income gap in the creator community, which is widening. So there's this small group of creators getting most of the rewards. And most creators, like I said, almost half earn under $1,000 a year. Again, please correct me if I'm wrong or misreading that. There's only a small minority that earn substantial income, and a very tiny elite earn millions. So fame and visibility, whether that's because of high engagement or viral videos or large following, doesn't guarantee monetization. Some of those creators still struggle to convert that attention into revenue. Then you have platforms that may reward attention but not income. And then you have brands that focus on only spending towards top creators that already have established reputation. So revenue will only go to a small group of those creators. And then, of course, there's this oversupply of creators. So, like I said earlier, an increase in competition and therefore revenue challenge. Once you attain that visibility or fame, there is energy required to maintain that visibility, that constant posting, audience expectations. It creates a sustained emotional and creative energy source or force. That attention from viewers or followers, that's life force. Think about all those creators that earn less than 1,000 a year, all the hours spent on the work, and then the real wealth that is being harvested is not money, but human presence, data, and emotional energy. I did read, where did I read this? It must have been one of the studies I just mentioned, that so that they had different categories of the number of hours certain creators spend on making content. And so, of course, you will see, I think I remember seeing creators that spent many hours, I think like 10 hours or more, made more money, which makes sense. And then the ones that spent maybe less than 5 hours a week or something creating content didn't get as much, which of course makes sense. You're spending more time creating, you better be making more money. But I mean, if you don't have a good income already, you're going to still want to keep your part-time job. But you have to remember, like, you are offering your precious time, ideas, nervous system to a machine. So yeah, I do feel that maybe there's this illusion of freedom. Supposedly creators get freedom, sovereignty, and self-expression. But many are unpaid servants for the algorithm, is how I see it, that shapes their identity around what performs. You have to understand these platforms are entities that they get fed by our attention, time, our drama, our conflicts, and yet only a few get paid. Only a few get paid well, but everyone is feeding this entity. So if this invisible system decides who is seen and heard, who really owns your voice in the end? That's another thing I thought of. The issue of only a few who earn real revenue reminds me of a pyramid. So think of a pyramid, that larger layer at the bottom, the masses supplying data, content, and engagement. And then there's a middle layer where there are some creators who we can say made it, And then the top of that are the platforms, the investors that capture compounded energetic and financial surplus. So this is not just income inequality. It's a very skewed soul time extraction. Many times we see creators transform into brands, into an identity that feeds this machine. What is the spiritual cost of that? I see it as a fragmentation between your true self and the performative self. If your nervous system, your self-worth, your daily rhythms are being controlled by these metrics, you don't own yourself. So who really gets paid for your time? Who can delete your reach overnight? Who decides what version of you is rewarded? Let's talk about the hidden side of the creator realm, the hidden ecosystem. There is some academic research about the creator ecosystem. Okay, there's a 2025 research paper called Creator Economy as a New Trend, Business Management Implications in the Digital Influencer Era. The study found that economic value is created through collaboration among creators, audiences, platforms, and business partners. And therefore, that creates this digital ecosystem. And I believe collaborating in the time we're in now going forward is going to be extremely significant. There's a value created by these collaborations, but the dependence on platform algorithms creates power asymmetry, meaning like platforms and partners can strongly influence creator success. And then you might think, well, how do they influence creator success? So the algorithmic recommendation systems, these decide which posts or videos users see. It ranks content based on predicted engagement signals, so number of clicks or interaction, and then it also determines how many people see it and for how long. So some platforms incentivize certain behaviors, which can create tensions between autonomy and platform control. And that's according to a qualitative study called Content Creators Between Platform Control and User Autonomy, the Role of Algorithms and Revenue Sharing. I think I'll share the link to this in the description. So, for example, rewarding frequent posting or promoting trendy topics, so then that would influence the creator content style, even their posting frequency, or even their collaboration strategies. Can you imagine, just for revenue as a creator, there are many of them that will then talk about topics or bring up topics that they don't really want to, just because it might be trendy. Platforms perform a function of a central coordinating role. So they link creators with audiences and advertisers, and they allow the channel to monetize. So platforms do influence which creators gain opportunities. So monetization incentives, they influence the types of content that creators produce. Like I said, just because there's some trendy topic, if you as a creator want to talk about that, your stuff will get pushed into the algorithm out there. These platforms are in a very powerful position in this ecosystem. And then I went down and I kind of looked at some other factors in the creator economy. So then we have these things called multi-channel networks and creator agencies. They connect creators with brands, they assist with content production and strategy, among many other things. And they can take about 9%. Is it 9% of, I think I read that, of creator revenue in exchange for business support. And this can significantly shape creator practices and monetization strategies and the content that's produced. There's another study here. I'll link it as well in the description. It's called Manufacturing Influencers: The Revolutionary Roles of Multi-Channel Networks in the Platform Economy. So these multi-channel networks can take up to something like, I think it was up to like 30 to 40% of revenue if they work like, I guess, at a full-time management or production support level. And they do things like negotiate brand deals, they connect the creators with advertisers, they manage sponsorship contracts, they can provide editing teams, filming support, production, marketing strategy, copyright management. They do quite a lot. So it is good for access to brand deals, as they have direct relationships with these advertisers, and they can promote or provide professional support and offer opportunities for fast growth, right? However, I'm somebody that I don't like being controlled by any system. So I had to look at the cons of this, because I like to look at things from both sides, right? You have to look at things from both sides, all sides. If you work with these MCNs, you may be sharing or signing away 10 to 40% of revenue. That's a lot, especially if you're a high earning creator. There's also this loss of independence, as there can be content decisions or restrictions, whether it's regarding sponsorship or platform partnerships. They can restrict you. Okay, some creators have shared in the past that there was difficulty leaving these multi-year contracts. They are long contracts. And also there's been research showing how these MCNs often prioritize the top performers. So there's an unequal support. I guess historically, these MCNs have been criticized for unfair revenue splits or unclear contract terms and very limited actual support. And I believe I read somewhere that some of these creators that did leave these MCNs, they left due to feeling that the benefits did not justify the commission. So then I thought, well, can creators become successful without these multi-channel networks? Yes, of course they can. Independent creators manage sponsorship deals, brand partnerships, and more on their own. Sometimes they may hire talent agencies or managers instead, or they create small teams where they retain more control and revenue. There is somebody I've watched for years now. I found him on YouTube. I don't know if I should share his name, but he's very good at what he does. And it's his message that I guess brought viewers to him. It's his message. It's his authenticity, actually. And I've watched him over the years kind of go from making these YouTube videos on his own to bringing in one of his best friends from childhood to work with him, that was really fun. But you kind of watch the relationship and how it's affected over time, because you're bringing your friends into that professional workspace, and unfortunately that didn't work out in the end. And so then he lost his friend who was always there helping him, set up the cameras and whatnot. And then he really struggled to get somebody else a few times, actually. And those people, because he has such a high work ethic, he kept bringing people that weren't at the same level as him. And so you kind of see the tension that's created between him with this, high standard and the other people that don't get it. So unfortunately, all the people that came into his life that he hired in the end ended up leaving, unfortunately. And he's actually doing everything on his own right now. Like, I don't think he has anybody helping him. He sets everything up himself. He knows how to fix everything. So he's lucky in that respect that he can understand what he's working with and fix everything. But he's on his own, and that can be a lot of stress. We've seen that. I think people that follow him, he's an astrologer. We see the stress he goes through. He's very open about most of the things in his life. So we see how difficult this can be when you're on your own. So as I was reading all of these studies and whatnot, there's this professionalization of the creator, right? So to the point where, yes, they can have their own production companies, but I just think, my gosh, that's quite a lot. It becomes like a small media company, which will definitely increase financial pressure. So you'd have to make sure as a creator that your profit margins, your production costs, your commission rates are balanced. You have to ask yourself, if you are a creator that's got or will have a small media company, is this financially sustainable? And then there's this other thing called authenticity, right? And research has repeatedly identified authenticity as one of the most important factors in influencer success, because authenticity leads to audience trust, right? Which can become more difficult to maintain when content starts becoming highly commercialized. There's another research study called The Dark Side of Social Media Influencer Work by Michael Beverland. That was done in, I think it was 2024. So when you have large teams as a creator that you work with, that can involve creative directors, marketing, brand strategists, the creator's content can become more corporate or scripted, and audiences can perceive that as less genuine, and then you've got this the engagement can decrease. There can also be production expectations that can become difficult to sustain without that revenue, right? That constant revenue. Then you have this increased dependence on sponsorship deals and advertising partnerships or brand collaborations, which influence the content produced. You have to remember there is still a tremendous amount of labor of behind the scenes work that the audience may not witness by the creator. So when working with a team, there can be an increased workload and stress, actually. Maybe some people would think that maybe there's the opposite, like it would decrease the stress and workload, but no. Think about that. When I'm working with a team, actually, I'll just use myself as an example. You think you're going to have a bit more time to yourself, but what I found personally, the workload is increased and my stress increases because I have to then go and make sure everyone's doing what they're supposed to do and it's been done properly. Otherwise, I end up doing it, or last minute projects get thrown onto me, and then I've got very limited time to finish them, to fix other people's mistakes. So of course there's this creative control conflict as well. If there are disagreements on content or style, conflicts between goals, that's a lot of stress, right? In the end, when we start creating mini media companies, I feel there may be possibly a decrease in personal expression. So when a creator goes from being solo to adding more people into their world, like teams, that quality of energy goes from personal, intimate, direct life force conduit to shared intention, noise, or plugging into an entity's field. That's just how I feel. That creative field stops being just yours. There's an identity dilution, so a decrease in the authentic self sometimes. There's an agenda hijacking. So content has to now meet goals of others, and then there may be ego inflation. So if a creator has misaligned partners as well, if you hire misaligned partners, that creates a lingering energetic entanglement. You know, how many times have people hired individuals who come to the interview, they're positive, they say whatever it takes to get the job, and you're like, yeah, all right, you're hired. And then you eventually find out that they're not what you thought. How do you get rid of them? So this can lead to the brand thriving because you've got all these people doing work, but the creator's soul maybe might feel empty. But if creators do find themselves in that space, ask yourself, you know, find a place that's quiet, okay? Deep breathing. Why did you start doing this? Before money, okay, before the addition of others, why did you start doing this? Hopefully it wasn't just to make money. Hopefully it's because you have a passion for something. Because if you don't, boy, is it going to be difficult. And then you're wasting money on teams. So if you find yourself in that space, take time to yourself and ask yourself why you started doing what you're doing before any of the money came in. Have you discussed your values and non-negotiables with your team? I don't know if some of you have seen contracts in the film industry. They're crazy. What is this thing where the term perpetuity is, when was that ever okay to add that to any contract? Why do we need to add that term to contracts, perpetuity? Some of you are probably wondering, what are you talking about? I hope that if any of you out there sign contracts, please do read them. I don't care if you're doing commercials or signing a deal with an agency. Creators, read the contracts. I don't care how long they are. When you have a term like perpetuity, that means for all eternity, endless time. Why in the world would anyone need that? That's scary. Like, what contract are you actually signing here? Because you're probably not going to get the truth. But in film and television, there's a lot of this term that's thrown into contracts. And because people are so desperate to become famous or get the deal, they'll sign it. It's like you're signing your soul away. Why would you do that? So stop. Read the contract. You can negotiate. If you want that term taken out, speak to them and take it out. Put a line right through it. Don't sign it. So discuss non-negotiables and values. Do you stop sometimes and ask yourself, does this feel like me? So if you've got a team that's making you do something, whether it's I don't know, a commercial or promotion for something, and they have an idea of how to do that, an artistic expression, are you just going to say yes? Or are you going to think about what you're doing? How is the world going to perceive you when you do whatever they tell you to do all the time? Question it. And if you don't like it, you need to talk to them. How much control do they really have over you? How is your audience going to view you after doing something you don't really want to do? Because I'll tell you what, if you're not really comfortable with doing something and you're doing it just for the money because your team told you to, your manager told you to, your manager told you, hey, this is gonna get more followers, or we're gonna get more revenue, you're gonna get these deals after you do this. Listen, your audience is gonna feel that, and that's gonna decrease that authenticity factor that people seek. So are you able to say no when there are deals or ideas that are not you? That's going to make your audience question, who are you really? Maybe we really don't know you, because now you're making us really confused. Here's another question. How do you want to be remembered? If you have kids, or maybe you want children in the future, will you feel proud of the decisions you've made, of how you put yourself out there to the world? And if you're going to hire people, okay, to work with you in a team, don't just hire people for skills. Make sure people resonate with your values. So for all of those individuals thinking about getting a team, or maybe you already have a team that you work with, all those people working around you, cheering you on, smiling, is it real? Just keep in mind, your brand, your identity, your voice, your creativity can become an asset. And once something is an asset, other people will want access to it. They'll want to manage it. They'll want to partner with it, or even control parts of it. It doesn't automatically mean something negative. Collaboration, management, it can all be helpful and sometimes necessary, but it does mean that creators are operating inside this larger ecosystem, this entity, an entity that includes platforms and agencies and audiences. And when money, especially money and attention and influence, begin to flow through that system, questions of power and ownership and shared resources will arise. So be careful. Be careful who you're working with. Be careful who you choose to bring into your world. Read the contracts, guys. I think I'm going to leave it there for today. I will continue this topic of the creator economy. I don't want to make treacherously long episodes. I don't. Who's got time to listen to like an hour and a half, really? But I will continue this, and we'll maybe look at the spiritual dimension of this creator economy next time. So until then, take care.